Hello, I'm Deb Brown, and I am going to share my screen with you today. I live in a small town in Iowa. I grew up on a farm in Iowa. Between graduation from high school and now, a whole lot of living has occurred. Part of that time I spent over 25 years in Chicago. So there's been a number of years of learning rule breaking tips. My dad, back in Iowa, got sick in the early 2000s. We moved from Winston-Salem, North Carolina to Hampton, Iowa. I thought I could just open my own social media business and be good to go. Not so much. You've got to live at least 40 miles away from your hometown in order to be respected and considered knowledgeable. It wasn't the best of economic time either. Local businesses didn't have the funds to hire me, so I volunteered at the local chamber in order to meet more people. I learned a lot at that chamber: communications, tourism, event hosting, rural ideas, and I did every job there. I eventually did get paid for the work. In truth, we just kind of made it up as we went along. I heard about a director position open in Webster City and decided, what the hey, why not apply for it? So I interviewed for the job. Now, I'd never been a chamber director before, and I sure wasn't your typical chamber material. You may know that director: female, pearls, pretty Chanel suits. You get the idea. Just not me. I was very excited, though, to try out some new ideas that I had and to do cool things in a town that needed me. I got the job. Their one big manufacturer had moved to Mexico 2 years before. 2,000 people out of work in a town of 8,000. 2,000 people without the money to shop at the stores downtown. Their worst fears had materialized. And the town had the negative belief that this would never get better. Our savior company had left. Businesses closed because they couldn't see a way forward. Building owners began to see how they could use their empty buildings as a tax write-off or fill it with storage. No one wanted to talk about all the empty buildings. Nobody. They were a sign of loss, and who wants to focus on that? Were these empty buildings a problem? The old world would say yes. And don't show them, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, and definitely don't let others out of town know about them. Well, I just couldn't see how that was going to work. If no one was looking at the buildings, they were never going to get filled. If we continued to believe that this town had lost everything and we played the poor me game, we never would survive. So I disagreed with this rule. I said they were an asset. We've got the opportunity for new businesses in town and to support people who want to start a business in their own town. And we are not a town full of losers. It was time to wake up and be the town that believed in itself. Let's showcase these buildings and fill them up. Let's be proud and loud and tell the world we are doing this. Shame hides in the dark, and we were ready for the light. We've been taught that we should never assume because it makes an ass out of you and me. That's kind of a put down rule. We use it to make people feel smaller and to keep them in the position we want them in. We use it to make people feel bad. I broke that rule. I assumed that this town wanted to be great, that the people in this town were tired of being considered losers. They were not losers. I made the assumption that there was a positive in all of this. There had to be, because here we were and we had a choice. We could continue down this sad sack road and be negative and see it all go away, or we could keep looking for the positive and just thrive. At my first board meeting, we went through the agenda and then we had questions. My executive board director asked me, "What are you going to do about all the empty buildings?" And I said back, "No, what are we going to do about it? Because this is not a challenge one person will solve. It takes the community." I know I surprised him. He was really close to giving up on those buildings. He had seen the destruction that happened because people thought the factory left. This town was doomed. So we explored my question, what were we going to do? Townspeople were waiting for the city to fix this problem of empty buildings. They didn't know they could be part of the solution because no one had told them. I made up the tour of empty buildings. I already knew it could be successful, and I knew we'd have to do it all together. So there's another rule I broke. If we're going to work together, we need to help each other. The realtors had been trying for 2 years to fill these buildings, but with the attitude around town, they were getting nowhere. The city economic developer listed all the properties on their website, and no one bid on it. There are many people that think the city can just do everything and that they don't have to help. In fact, that's the farthest thing from the truth. The first lesson I learned in this town was we are the city. Each and every one of us has something to contribute and something we can do instead of waiting for the city to do it. One thing I learned was how to be an even better connector and to bring people together around the things they want to do. So take a minute, think about who in your network you could help. How can you lead with, how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? Instead of, how can you help me? We scheduled the tour of empty buildings, and it wasn't just me showing people around. It was the local engineering company making maps for people. It was the stores handing out postcards to visitors. It was posters in town, in the gas station, in the hospital, lunchrooms, and the fast food joints. It was friends posting on Facebook. It was the people all over town telling each other. It was the owner realtor in the building the day of the tour, and the retired chamber people sharing the history of the building and suggesting ideas. The local grocery store offering coffee at the tour. It was talked about everywhere. Social media platforms, newspapers, radio, in homes, and on phones and in person. So I'm not very good at asking anyone for permission. Never have been. I'm the oldest child in my family. I was taught right from wrong, and I was smart enough to do the right thing. I figured what I did would be the right thing, or close enough to the right thing. When we were doing this tour of empty buildings, there was no one I felt I needed to ask for permission. I did ask Joel, who owned a large construction company and sat on my board, and Ed, the city manager, to go through a couple of the buildings with me. I didn't do it to ask them permission to have the tour. I wanted to hear what they said about any problems in the building and ask them how they would handle it. I did it to build a relationship with them, to share my ideas and tell them what I was doing with the tour. I did it because I believed they'd be valuable allies in filling the buildings. I really listened to their ideas about how to fix them. By the time we were done, they were as excited as I was, and they were thrilled to be asked for their opinion and their expertise. Now, Joel offered to walk through any building with a prospective buyer or renter and discuss what might need to be done, to give them an idea of how they could be a part of the business community and learn to work with everyone. And he did this, still does it, in fact, for free. The old rule was never talk to the negative people. You know them, the committee of negativity. Who wants to talk to someone who seldom has something good to say? You imagine that they'll make fun of you and belittle you. I even had imaginary conversations in my head with them. It was time to get out of my head. I had committed to making a difference in this new job and to help my new home. So I broke this rule. I visited the guys at the coffee club, and they poo-pooed my idea, well, that'll never work. But I didn't let that sway me. I kept at them and asking a lot of questions like, why won't it work? Or what do I need to look out for? Finally, I asked one guy who had no desire to buy a building or even be positive about the tour, don't you have a daughter that lives out of town? What would it be like if she moved back and started a business? His eyes lit up. He could care less about himself, but his kids and grandkids, that was his motivator. He finally had a good reason to listen to me, and he spoke up, asking me, you can guarantee that kind of thing? Had to tell him the truth. I told him I couldn't guarantee that, but I could guarantee that it all would be a possibility, and it was more of a possibility than what he had if we did nothing. Those old guys at the coffee club, they began sharing about the Empty Buildings tour. Now, here's something for you to remember. These people are members of your community too. For most of us, we serve together with those on the Committee of Negativity in other ways, at church, on boards, at events, at work, and we don't always disagree. Their reactions are worth hearing and seeing. So try your best to be kind. And if they truly are toxic about everything, you'll know you've given your best shot. Then you can avoid them. The day of the tour came and 44 people attended. We considered it a success. Several people talked about buying new buildings and starting new businesses. At the wrap-up coffee gathering, everybody was excited. So how did we fill those 10 buildings if no one bought or rented that night? You are never done. This rule is just not true. And here's the secret sauce of an Empty Buildings tour. Keep talking about it. The people on the tour looked at the buildings. They asked a lot of questions. Some took pictures and everybody was complimentary. But the most important thing they did was they kept talking about it. No one bought buildings that night, but lots more people heard about it. A new plumbing company bought the closed plumbing company. They didn't come to the tour, but they had heard the business was for sale. And hearing about the tour was just another way they heard about it. Did you know it takes 7 times to hear something before it registers? It's called the Rule of 7, and it says consumers must hear about something 7 times before they take action. A new health-related business bought a long-standing empty building. The new owner is a resident and hadn't even realized this building was for sale. It inspired her to start her own business. She hired staff. She brought on other healthcare specialists. A Hispanic church opened in the old public health building, and they would not have known about it except for the tour. 2 new clothing stores for teens opened. Now, one business only lasted a few months. The other business participated in the incubator project, and 1 year later went on to buy a building 3 times the size. They were not on the tour, but they heard about it from the Hispanic church pastor. A new Mexican grocery store opened in a building the owners bought. It went out of business after 2 years. Now, failure isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's an opportunity to try your ideas, see if they work, and adjust if they don't. A vintage store that was owned by a woman in the picture above in the dark hair, I visited her at another outdoor event where she was a vendor. I asked her to come take a look at our incubator project, and she did. She loved the town so much, she just bought a building. Nancy's law office was bought and is today a tattoo shop. Nancy didn't want to put up another for sale sign in her building. She was sensitive to the fact that there were already so many signs. However, she needed to clean out her deceased husband's law office building. This spurred her into action, and it also got her building sold. Every time something happened, a building was sold or rented, we made a big deal of it. If we heard someone was looking at a building, we shared that. We just kept talking, and it made all the difference in the world. 10 of those 12 buildings were rented or sold to a new business. A new project came out of the tour, the incubator project. So I had this question in my head: how can we help new business owners succeed? Then I thought about the baby chicks and how we used to keep them under a huge heat lamp called an incubator. What if we gave new businesses a chance to grow, to try out their ideas, take some small steps to success? Now, Connie and Ron had 2 empty buildings, and I approached them with the idea. I suggested 3 months free rent and reduced rent for the rest of the year. The chamber would teach them marketing. The Small Business Development Center would teach them how to write a business plan as they were doing business. Best case scenario was the owners would not be paying their utilities and the buildings would get spruced up and used. One building has had 4 different businesses in it. 2 of those have moved to their own buildings in town, and 1 has moved to another town. The 4th one moved out of state. The other building first had a thrift store, things on commission. They stayed for 3 months and they left town with people's money. Fortunately, it wasn't a lot, and it was a lesson learned too. The next business had a clothing and gift store for 1 year, and that person is the one that bought a bigger building. Now, today, both buildings are open again. Businesses, they come and go, much like breathing. It's normal. Now, let's take a look at how we denied, changed, or ignored the rules for 3 different events. I wanted to offer an event downtown that was different, that was more than just show up, eat, walk around, and go home. Those kind of events are so typical, and it's easy enough to find something else to do. Well, what would bring people downtown, and what would keep them downtown? We changed this rule, and we focused on making our events the kind of events that makes people want to come and bring people with them. So Summer Nights was one of those events. We added the theme, Be a Hero. We made it late afternoon into evening, and you don't always have to do it the way they've always done it. So many events are during the day, we changed it up. The movie theater was on the Empty Buildings tour and was in the process of being rehabbed and reopened by a group of residents who wanted to save the closed movie theater. The group was called Hero, and it was named by the high school students in the entrepreneurship program. And it stands for Help, Entertain, and Restore Organization. Funds were raised publicly, and donations came in from $5 to $25 pretty steadily. Everyone wanted to save the theater. And during this event, the theater was open for people to tour, ask questions, and make donations. Now, the people in this picture were part of an alumni group that came down to purchase a seat. They'd set up a fundraiser that sold the old seats for $300. Well, they didn't actually sell them, but you got to put your name on a plaque on the back of the seat. And alumni clubs love this idea. We asked the entire town to tell us about their heroes, and it happened to be Organ Donation Month. 2 different people who had an organ donated to them came and shared their story. We filmed interviews with them prior to the event, and then we shared them on social media. Another young man needed an organ. His stepdad was into racing. We have a racetrack here, and he had several drivers bring their cars down and park in front of his business. People came to see the cars. It was an entirely different crowd that normally attended these kind of events. And they found out that we knew how to have fun and that they were always welcome. We raised funds and volunteers for organ donations. We also ate and danced and watched the kids play shop and had an overall great time. Please, no. If you hand out brochures and sit behind your table, there's no interaction with your possible clients and volunteers. You are just another bump on the road, and you end up talking to each other and not visitors to your booth. For God's sake, stand up at the very least. Why would anyone want to volunteer at your place if you don't know how to make it fun? Besides, someone would have to pick up all those brochures people throw on the ground. We told nonprofits they could set up for free, but their booths and tables needed to be interactive. The Historical Society folks came, and they brought a game with them. They had taken blocks and put pictures of old buildings that were no longer in existence on one side, and on the other side was the name and location of the building. It brought so many people to their booth. They had so much fun. Older folks shared memories of those buildings. Historical people talked and learned about the history of their buildings. Even a few young architects were interested and asked a lot of questions. They were reaching out to their market and a possible new market. Don't give kids markers. And this rule may work at home. In fact, it's a good rule for home. However, it is so much more fun just to let them be the artists they are. We let kids make their own superhero capes and masks. It appealed to many ages of kids, even a few adult kids. There was an entire area set up for the work to be done. Building Families organization sponsored it and provided all the necessary tools. There were kids being kids and saving the world. Isn't that what we all want? Their work was spectacular and entertaining, and we know that everyone has a hero inside of them. This is wrong, wrong, wrong. Please invite everyone. As organizers, folks are just used to planning it all and inviting the same people they always use. If you don't know someone or haven't started to build a relationship with them, you're much more hesitant to talk to them. And then we put up our own roadblocks. What if they can't understand me? What if I can't understand them? Will they even want to talk to me? Well, what's the worst that can happen? They don't talk to you. All right, move on. Don't take it personally. Iglesia del Dios is a local Hispanic church, and they make amazing food, and it's part of their mission. They sold tacos and burritos and were the surprise hit of the event. The food was great. This is the organization that bought the old public health building. Now, today, that huge building is a sanctuary, an event center, and offers childhood education. Boy, we hear this challenge often, and you will too. Liability is too expensive. People will sue every chance they get. We can't afford this. What if? Blah, blah, blah. Well, this scissor lift was brought down to the event by a local construction company. People could write on it as one of the employees lifted it high enough to see over the buildings. The company already had liability coverage for it. However, they did ask everyone to sign a waiver before they were taken up for a ride. Now, there's two easy enough solutions. You can also find a sponsor for that one part of your event to cover the insurance. And check your own insurance closely. You may already have coverage or can pick up a rider relatively inexpensively. Please don't be overcome by the folks who think liability insurance is too expensive. Liability is no problem. Oh, for Pete's sakes, why not mix private and public? Now, Junquefest was dreamed up by me and Mike, a local antique expert and retired store owner. We wanted to bring people to town to buy junk, refurnish, rehab, antique old stuff. And it's in high demand and brings out all kinds of shoppers. This picture shows how each vendor had a tent set up and how many people came. The first year, over 5,000 people attended. Now, Junquefest isn't a yearly event right now, and that would not have happened if the chamber hadn't partnered with a private business who was the expert in this type of event. And yes, he shared in the revenue. His knowledge of who and how to market it made it a success. As a nonprofit, the chamber is first designed to support its members. There's no law that says nonprofits can't make money. They can. The way they use it is just different. My board said I couldn't do this. I couldn't bring in a private businessman. I said it was too late. I had already started the process, and I had made a verbal agreement with Mike. I was not going to go back on my word. So I asked them, why not? Why couldn't we do this? Nobody had a good answer. They did say, we've never done it before, and that it might upset someone. So I replied, well, now we will be able to say we've done it. Let's give it a try, bring new people to town and see how it works. And yes, it's been a smashing success. We also asked the local restaurants to figure out how to feed people. No outside food vendors. We wanted to support our own local restaurants. And they made food that was ready quickly and affordable. They also helped with trash cleanup throughout the event. Some of our other restaurants were worried that these places would take away business from them over the weekend. They were wrong. Competition's a good thing. It offers more choices, and not everyone wants to eat at a picnic table. Having different offerings kept people in town to eat. The restaurants were all busy during the event. You can't have dogs and people in a park together. It's messy. Dogs bark. It just won't work. Well, yes, you can. If you ask the dog owners to be responsible, make potty bags available. And if the dog appears mean, have a conversation with the owner. We did not have any problems at all. The committee on negativity was worried that bad things would happen if we let those dogs come, and they're give an inch, take a mile kind of thinkers. Instead, we took their pictures and shared them online during the event. We tagged the owners. People love seeing the dogs. It let people know they could come and bring their own dogs. Oh no, break this rule. Involve your participants and your attendees. We asked the vendors what they would like, what could be different for them. We had moved downtown one year as the park was being renovated, and I wanted to talk to the vendors to see what they wanted. No one had asked them what they wanted before. They were used to being told what they could and could not do. So I invited a group of nearby vendors and we met outside on the street. We walked the area and they told me they wanted to bring their trailers into their spots. So I said, okay, if you can make that work and customers and attendees are happy, I'm all for it. And they planned out the placement of vendors and trailers. It was work they were excited to do because it made it easier for them in the long run. Every year, the state's best-known TV station travels in an RV to 4 towns during the week before the biggest college game in the state, Iowa versus Iowa State. And we got invited to participate one year. These are 2 of the sports guys. Of course, we gave them t-shirts to wear, t-shirts that Google had made for us for another promotion. And they loved them because they were so soft and they fit. We love seeing our town on the TV. Normally, events take 1 year to plan. There's a lot to do. When you're planning an event that 6,000 people will come to, it takes a lot. And it involves lots of committees and meetings and decisions, what can stay and what must go. We broke that rule. We planned it in 2 months. Well, I didn't plan it all. I put out a call to everyone, and the town answered my call. I asked them what they wanted, and they told me. And once they realized I was serious and really wanted to know what kind of things they wanted, they were excited. Every idea they had, we said yes to. Please make it work. And word got around that everyone was welcome and could come set up. The few requirements that we had is we would let you know where your space would be. Make it fun and no obscenities. Be respectful and please no nudity. By taking away the committees and the meetings, we also took away the boredom and drudgery of planning. Each group of people were excited that they got to go do their own idea. So what does that mean, they got to do their idea? Well, let me give you an example. Mary came to me and asked, could they tailgate? She said it would be people who normally drive to games and take their RVs or big trucks. They grill, they eat, they drink, and represent their favorite teams. So I said, great idea. How are you going to make that happen? Her first response was, you don't mind if we drink beer? And I said, as long as I don't see beer cans or drunk people causing trouble, I'm good. And I also told her that the police would be there walking around and I'd have no hesitation to call them if there were problems. And then she said, you mean I can really do it? Yes, Mary, yes. So we worked on the place where they could come and park. We talked about the safety of grilling and the hours they could be there. Then they did all the rest of the work. This was to be fun. Wear your favorite team color. Stay all day. Have a drink or not. Tailgate, eat bacon, party with your friends and family. I thought some of my board was going to have a heart attack when I told them all the things I said yes to. I simply pled ignorance. We had a bacon eating contest, and it wasn't our idea either. It was a local business who processes bacon and sells it all over the U.S. They could have done hot dogs, but those were done to death. Plus, they wanted to use their favorite product, bacon. We are in Iowa. They cooked an awful lot of bacon, and it all got shared with the crowd. It was their investment into the success of the event. And there were lots of ideas from lots of people. And we said yes to almost all of them. We jam-packed the streets in the downtown park area with activities and games and food and drink. And oh yeah, tailgating at one end. It was a real party. The TV guys still talk about the bacon. One of the first ideas proposed was the chili cook-off. And the guy who suggested it was so surprised. He was sure I'd say no. He was also surprised when I asked him how he was going to make it happen. It was his idea. He could bring it all together. And he did. It turned into a real cook-off with over 15 people cooking and participating. The TV guys did some of the taste testing, and after the awards, anyone could have a bowl of chili for free. Always charge for food? We broke that rule. Of course, we broke this rule because we thought bigger. These TV guys were real influencers and we needed to represent. Again, it wasn't my idea. The local flying school thought it would be a great idea to go to the town before us and pick them up and fly them in. How am I going to say no to that? And it cost us nothing. The flying school sponsored that part of the event, and I assume they had all of their liability insurance in place. Who needs a limo when you have an airplane? Again, these were sponsored by a local company, and the idea came from some guy who thought this would be fun. He'd seen it online, and he was sure he could build those racing bar stools. That's something I never would have thought of, let alone figured out how to build one. And we said, great, how will you make that happen? I can't believe how many times I said that in 2 months. I'm here to tell you it works. Tony's Tires sponsored it. We roped off an area and told the sports and weather guy in this picture, don't fall down. A local church youth group thought it would be fun to bring their human foosball game, and we agreed. It looks just like a foosball table, only bigger, and with the humans kicking the ball. It got really interesting. People came and went and played that game during the entire event. And we left it up to them and their sponsor on how to organize it all. The sponsor was a local insurance company. Liability all taken care of, and no one got hurt or sued. Ha! RVTV came back year after year for 3 years. Now they have never gone to any town 3 years in a row. They had such a good time in Webster City. Everything was taken care of. Their contact person was not crazy running around trying to make sure it was all okay. It felt like the entire town was there, and I think they were, and people were respectful. These guys could participate in events and have some fun too. We broke this rule, and our record still stands. There were 22 rules in this presentation. It's too many. It really boils down to 8. And these ideas work just about everywhere, not just in a small town. Say yes to all the ideas. Let them take small steps. No idea is too crazy to try out. Be sure to tell everybody and help everyone. And let as many people as possible participate. Please don't worry about liability. Have fun, make it engaging, and make your own rules. We are taught from an early age that we must follow the rules. Somewhere along the way, we learn these rules. Then we don't think about them again, except to keep following them. What if you made the conscious decision to review the rules and determine which ones work for you and get rid of the rest? Imagine that. If you'd like to receive our free newsletter, you can subscribe. This is the link. Thank you very much for participating today.